Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Come on in. Please like, share, tag someone as we begin this video on today. Thank you for viewing the Facebook fan page and the YouTube channel of the Law Office of Travell Travis. Our law firm focuses on the needs of pastors, entrepreneurs, creatives, and the community. We invite you to follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. You can email us, travelltravis@gmail.com. You can visit our website, travelltravis.com, or call us at area code 757-528-8529. Our videos are for educational and advertising purposes. It is not a substitute for consulting a licensed attorney in your home state. Before I begin this video today, I want to personally thank our clients and our friends and supporters, family members, for praying for my wife and I and our entire family during this season. Many of you know that after shortly doing a video on COVID-19 in the church, that my family was diagnosed with the virus. But I thank God I can say today that my entire family is COVID-free. So to God be the glory for that. And so today I want to share a video regarding the reopening of churches. I know this tomorrow is Pentecost Sunday, and many churches are contemplating reopening, if not so much if, but when they are going to reopen their churches. And so the topic for today is more of in the form of a question, and I'm not getting into, the different people got different opinions, different camps. I'm not getting into that. I think I even showed a meme where there's still a whole lot of diversity of thought in terms of what should happen, how it should happen. But for the sake of argument, I want to pose the question: God told you to reopen the church. Now what? God told you to reopen the church. Now what? You sometimes find yourself in a predicament like Moses or Abraham, where God tells you to do something, but it doesn't always give you all the details necessarily how it should be done. But I believe as God led Noah for the construction of the ark, as God gave Moses the details for the building of the tabernacle, that if we stay on the altar and we keep our ears to the mouth of God, and if we stay a little bit longer, then not only God will give us the green light, but also God will give us the roadmap for how we can safely reopen our churches. And so the question once again is, God told you to reopen the church. Now what? And so I want to pose the 5W questions, if you will, for you and your team to consider, for you even to go back to God to get an answer and direction for your congregation. The first W, and maybe if you're watching, you want to type it, the first W is when. God told you to reopen the church. The first question is when. Is that tomorrow? Is it next month? Is it to be implemented over time in phases? And so the first question is when. So yes, God has told you to reopen the church, but when? The second W question I want to propose is what? What? And somebody might want to type what, but what changes are required or recommended for you to reopen? Do you need to revise your service format? Do you need to have some type of professional cleaning to reopen, and even to hire someone for the future that can do a professional cleaning? Do you have to change your weekly service schedule? Are there certain aspects of your worship service that may have to be eliminated? or changed and modified in some kind of way. What does the law require for your state? And that changes day by day, week by week. Not only do you have the federal guidelines, you have state guidelines, but also city. And for example, I'm here in Richmond, and Virginia said one thing, but our church is seated in the actual city of Richmond, and it has different guidelines from actually the state of Virginia. And so you have to know pretty much on a weekly basis what the requirements are for where your church is actually located. Have you consulted your insurance company to make sure that you're covered in case of some type of outbreak or illness? Have you done your research into the various legal aspects? Have you consulted with medical professionals? Not just somebody who stayed at a Holiday Inn, and watch Red Web MD, but somebody who maybe is a doctor or a nurse that could perhaps even further educate you, whether in person or whether in one of these multitude of online seminars that can help you know what changes are recommended or required if in fact God has told you to reopen the church. Right? So we have number one, when. Number two, we have what. Now I want to propose the next question would be where. Where? Well, that's obvious, my church. Well, the where is not so much your church, but where will people sit when they come into church? What signage is required, and where should the signage be located? Where should we place the hand sanitizer stations? Where should our staff stand as they perhaps greet the people? Our ushers seat the people? Where should our praise team even stand? Should there be some type of spacing? Does there have to be a spacing between them and the musicians, or them and the pulpit, or them and the audience? And so the third question is where. Not so much where in terms of we going back into our church building, but once we are in our church building, the where becomes where will people sit? Where will people stand? Where will people conduct and lead worship? Where will we place the signs? Where will we place the hand sanitizing stations? So that people, where are the children going to go during service? All those where questions, I believe, have to be answered now that you know for certain that God has told you to reopen the church. Okay? So we have so far the when. We've talked about the what. We've talked about the where. And so now the next question is, the fourth question is the who. Who can come to church? Are you saying everybody? Or are you placing certain restrictions on maybe those below a certain age? Maybe you don't want children coming to your first service. Maybe you don't want elderly coming to your first service. Maybe you don't want those who have pre-existing conditions to come to your first service. Maybe those who are recovering from COVID-19, you may not want them to come to your first service. Or those who have pre-existing conditions, those who perhaps are unwilling to follow the guidelines in terms of a mask or social distancing. And so the question then becomes, number four, who? Who can come once this decision has been made and God has said that it's okay to open the church? Another aspect of who is who should we consult? You said, well, if I got God, who else do I have to consult? Yes, God has given you the authorization to reopen the church, but it may be wise to still consult with wise counsel, insurance companies, as I mentioned before, the health department. Do they have certain recommendations, guidelines for how churches can safely reopen? Cleaning professionals, how to maintain the church. What's too? If it's a such thing as too much, is it too little? Is there an affordable accommodation in terms of cleaning, even in terms of consulting your team, your core team, your ministerial staff, your auxiliary leaders. law enforcement, lawyers, and you may not necessarily have to contact a lawyer, but I've watched numerous seminars and town hall meetings from the federal government level, the state government level, the local city level. I've watched numerous webinars from pastors, as they're trying to come up with best practices for how they are going to have church once they reopen the church. Attending videos offered by the health department and knowing what the CDC is saying. Talking to your key constituent groups, whether it's your trustee board, whether it's your ministerial staff, your auxiliary leaders, your faithful supporters, as well as your congregation. You may need to actually do a survey of your congregation to find out, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what is their comfort level before entering. Not to veto, not to override anything that God has said, but as a shepherd, I think that is important that we kind of find out, okay, how, once again, we're going to do this. And so once again, the fourth question is who? Who can come to church? And who do we need to consult with? Not get permission, but who do we need to consult with perhaps before we reopen the church? Now, this isn't a W, but it's often listed with the 5W questions. And I want to pose, and somebody might want to type this in, is the how. Is the how. And so, as I mentioned before, how do I prepare my staff? How do I prepare my people for re-entering the sanctuary after, in many cases, 2 to 3 months? Do I need to have a meeting before the meeting? Do I need to have some type of training to say, okay, we're going back into church. Here's how things will be different. Here's what we're going to have to do. Rather than just saying, come on back in and let's just do it the way we've been doing it, there may have to be a conference call, a Zoom meeting, some type of a forum, or even bringing the people in for, I won't say a practice run, but it may require you to bring in maybe the praise team and the ushers and your musicians, your greeters, a core group of people. Let's go inside the church. Let's do a walkthrough. How are we going to do altar call? How are we going to do meet and greet? How are we going to do offerings differently? Where's the praise team going to stand? Okay, that's your assigned mic. Okay, we're going to put a little dot in your spot. That's where you're going to stand. Okay, we've got the ruler out and we've somewhat measured, this is what 6 feet looks like in the sanctuary. Here's some chairs maybe we need to move. Here's where we need to station the mask. And so all those things should probably have a dry run, a practice run, trial run, before we just go back in. So once again, I'm not getting into the question of should you. We've already established that God has told you to reopen the church. But the question is, once again, when? The question is what? The question is where? The question is who? The question is how? And then I want to leave you with this last W question. And I wrestled with this one. Why? Why? And I'm not saying why from God's standpoint, but I think that there has to be a certain, how would I say this? God, how do you want your church to operate post-pandemic? What changes do you want us to make? What lessons should we have learned? Is it just coming back in and just doing church as usual? Or should we say, Lord, how do we make our worship a sweet smell in your nostrils? How do we make our worship pleasant to your ears? How do we make our church what you want it to be and not what we have made it to become? It can't be just about we got to get the people back in because our offers are low. It can't be let's just get the people back in because we want our large crowds again and we're worried about people going to other churches. But is there a new mandate, prioritization for evangelism, outreach, civic engagement, fellowship? There has to be something that makes coming to church different than what your congregation can get from online sitting at home. And I believe that God will give the church or remind the church of what his why has always been about. And so once again, in closing, I'm not getting into what God has told you. But if, when, or if he already has told you it's okay to reopen your church or you must reopen your church, the question is, now what do I do? The 5 W questions: when, what, where, who, H question, how, and then the last question I presented to you, why. Once again, hit those like buttons, hit those love buttons, share, comment, tag somebody, follow us. Once again, thank you for viewing the Facebook fan page and the YouTube channel of the Law Office of Travell Travis. We invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Visit our website, travelltravis.com. Email us, travelltravis@gmail.com, or call us by telephone at area code 757-528-8529. Thank you, and once again, know that I'm praying for you. If our firm can provide any legal assistance or even just pastoral assistance to you and your congregation, we're here to help each other. We're here to hold each other up. We're here to navigate through this unprecedented times together. And I'm praying that God's blessings will be upon you, upon your congregation, and then in this season with so many voices, that you will hear God's voice clearer than ever before, and that he will also give you the courage to do whatever he's instructed you to do. May God bless you and have a great evening.